How good you are at communication is in direct correlation to how good are you a listener. I was speaking to somebody recently around this, and it really reminded me of when I was younger. And I remember I was in my 20s and I was in a party and it was a group of people and we were talking and someone was directing their conversation at the group, but specifically at me. And I remember at some point in the conversation that they said something and I said yes. And I said, but what I just said wasn't a yes/no answer. And I was so embarrassed. And what I realized was I just wasn't listening. How many of you can relate to that? Somebody's speaking to us and maybe we start listening at the beginning, but eventually our minds drift off and we start going inside our heads and we're not really listening. And this also happens when I speak to people around public speaking. They are very scared with a Q&A where someone asks them a question and they feel they won't be able to give a good answer. So what is the challenge? And I think the challenge is that many times when I speak to people, what happens is when someone's talking to us, we're not most of the time really listening. Why? Because you and I, we go inside our heads and we start having a conversation with ourselves about what somebody else is saying. So therefore we're doing do I agree? Do I disagree? Oh, when did I have that experience? Oh, is that right? Is that wrong? And when you go inside your head, you're not listening 100% to the person. You're listening to yourself and dissecting what they're saying instead of actually really listening to them. An example of this might be, and hopefully you can relate, that you've been telling somebody maybe about a holiday you've been on and something amazing happened. And the person's response is to pull it back to themselves and go, oh yes, I remember when I went on a holiday or I had that experience. And you think, well, did you not just hear what I said? Because you're not really responding to what I've just said. You're responding to your story and your experiences. So the art of really being, active listening, and I go into organizations and I do a workshop around this and we do exercises around this. The game for you to really be a good communicator is you have to up your level of listening. And so the game is for you to take on this week, hopefully like your mission, if you so choose to, is when someone's speaking to you, the game is to not be inside your head and to be 100% over there with the other person, listening to everything they're saying and not go inside your head and have a conversation about what they're saying. And I know that now, because I've been trained in this, that when someone's speaking, I can look at them for an hour. They could be talking for an hour and I can just be completely over there. I don't need to look away. I don't need to blink. I'll blink, but I don't need to sort of, pull myself back from the listening. And sometimes people can feel a bit sort of, oh, she's just staring at me. And I say, yes, I'm staring at you because I'm listening. I really am listening. And you'll find that when you really listen to people, they get to experience that interaction completely differently. They get to be in their power because maybe for the first time, they're really being listened to. And yes, during that conversation, you might go back inside your head and start having a conversation about what they've said, or many people go inside their head and try to preempt, what am I going to say next? Or how am I going to respond to what they're saying? You don't need to work it out. You've just got to trust that if you're really listening to somebody in that moment, you will know what to say. And if you just give yourself some space, even after when they've finished speaking, just give yourself a few seconds, you will then know how next to respond. So the game for you is when someone's speaking, practice just being out there with them 100% and really listen to them. Because when you listen to people, you'll gain so much more information. You'll know what to say next. And that person will have a different experience of themselves because someone's really listening to them. So don't go inside your head and have a conversation about, do I agree? Do I disagree? Is that right? Is that wrong? Just be out there, and you'll find that when you're a great listener, you then eventually will become a phenomenal communicator, because you're standing in the power of communication, which is a big part of it is listening. So I hope that this has been useful for you, that some of what I've said has resonated with you. And the only way you're going to find this out is to do it yourself, is to try it out. Just really be listening 100% to what somebody else is saying. And always, I love to hear, what did you hear for yourself when you did that exercise? What did you see for yourself? What did you learn from doing that exercise? It's powerful if you do it. So until the next time, remember, give me some comments. I love to hit reply. If it's an email, if it's, on YouTube, put a comment underneath just to let me know, what did you get to see for yourself? And trust me, your communication will grow in the process. So until the next time, stay safe and stay well.